This video has been edited with Share Factory, a free editing software exclusively available on the PlayStation 4. Could Takar's knife really be an effective weapon? Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a different kind of video. As you saw already, I'm putting a little more effort into this one than normal. My name is Brian, and the reason for that is because this is more of a Chamber of the Wraith video and less of anything from my weekly series like Super Sunday or The Memories of Arkham City. This one is more of a personal list of 5 things that I personally think would make the gear system in Injustice 2 better. And by better, I mean not necessarily, I mean what I think would make it better. If you disagree with any of these, that's fine. That's why I make these videos. Not necessarily for you to disagree on, but for you people to comment and explain why, or what you would do to fix the gear system, or if it's, or are you of the mindset that it ain't broke, so don't fix it, man. So let's begin then, starting with number 1. The first thing I would do is I would make alterations to mother boxes. More specifically, about certain things with mother boxes. The 2 things that immediately come to mind is that abilities are not very easy to come by in these games, especially certain abilities like Catcall and the Staff of Grayson. So I would personally recommend that NetherRealm Studios adds an ability mother box set, where you can buy blonde, where you can buy at least gold tier mother boxes that will contain, or will have a 50% chance of containing one ability, for example. But that's also relating to step 2, which is to allow you to buy platinum and diamond tier mother boxes. I mean, silver boxes are like 5,000 credits, or no, bronzes are 5,000 credits, silver are 10,000, and gold are 25,000 credits. So it wouldn't be too hard for me to imagine platinum mother boxes going for, say, 200,000 credits, and diamond mother boxes going for 500,000 credits. Now, those are very high, very ostentatious numbers, but it would make sense because these are some of the best mother boxes in the game, and they're also extremely rare. Plus, with the access to those higher up mother boxes, certain characters like Sub-Zero, who I just can't seem to get epic gear for, he's been out for almost a month now, and I swear I have fewer pieces of epic gear for him at this time than I have for any other character. And some obscenely good rares too, as you can see. So, and with him, I also only have 4 abilities. Almost every other character has at least 5. So having the ability to buy ability mother boxes would be super cool. So, and this would also help characters like Poison Ivy, which only up until very recently, I've stuck with 2 abilities with her for like almost 2 months. So the ability to buy special boxes that could contain an ability, and of course buying a diamond mother box, you're guaranteed at least one. A diamond ability mother box, you're guaranteed at least one. These would help people who are desperately trying to collect abilities for certain characters, like, I need more Sub-Zero abilities, damn it! Or for those people who just can't seem to get the Staff of Grayson no matter how hard they try. The 4th thing I would do is alter the gear bias, specifically for epic pieces of gear. You'll notice, for instance, with Cyborg, that basically every usable loadout I have has different epic pieces of gear, and that Cyborg has an obscene amount of epic gear. It's ridiculous. It's like every other epic piece of gear I get is for Cyborg, or for Dr. Fate, or something like that. Even with characters like Red Hood, who have been around for about a month, they don't seem to be having a lot of gear, whereas the launch characters seem to be much more likely. It could just be because of the fact that there were 28 of them at launch, and they've been around since day one, so this is probably a non sequitur. Like, this isn't even a point that it should be making. But it's also ridiculously hard to get epic pieces of gear for certain characters anyway, outside of their gear multiverse. I was only able to get half of the epic pieces of gear for Sub-Zero and Red Hood because of their gear multiverse. And even up until recently, Bane was somebody I had real trouble with getting epic gear. And compared to Cyborg, he has like next to no pieces of epic gear. So, while I personally don't seem to have been affected by it too badly, altering the gear bias so that it's a little more spread out would be nice. And maybe even have it so that the gear bias for characters you actually play setting was a little bit stronger, so that you're more likely to get pieces of gear for... I play a lot of Batman and Sub-Zero, so it would be nice to have a lot of Batman and Sub-Zero gear. And while that's true for one, that doesn't necessarily seem to be true with the other, even though Sub-Zero is my second most played character in this game. Quick side note, there was something I totally spaced on that I should have mentioned. Duplicate pieces of epic gear. You'll know one thing if the sharp-eyed would notice is that I don't have any duplicates of epic gear. That's not because I haven't gotten duplicates of epic gear. I've gotten tons of that. But I've sold most of it. And it seems like the top 5 like duplicate epic gear receivers that I get are like Cyborg and Batman and Superman and Cheetah even, which was really weird because I don't really play a lot of Cheetah. And I have gotten a few with Deadshot, who I do play, but duplicates otherwise kind of seem to spread around. And I always sell those for credits, because really, why would I bother holding onto an epic piece of gear if I already have it, when I could just regen it for the better stats? You know what I mean? But with that in mind, I just wanted to say that if it looked like things were kind of skewed towards me having more even amounts of gear, that's because I've sold a crap ton of epic duplicates over the past couple of months. So, with that said, on to point number 3. Number 3. There we go. The third point I wanted to make is about shader cost, because personally, I think the shaders are a little bit too expensive right now. The standard shaders like colors for, say, a Scarecrow character, like anybody who wants the jitters for Scarecrow is going to have to shell out 4,000 source crystals. That's a lot, especially for people who are higher level and it takes longer for them to level up, thus longer to get more source crystals. With premier skins, however, like Captain Cold's Mr. Freeze or the upcoming Bizarro coming with the Starfire update, I would not mind them staying at 6,000 source crystals because it kind of makes sense for them to be more like that, because it's kind of like buying half a character. That would personally kind of make sense to me for the shaders to be less expensive, or at least for the base shaders to be less expensive, but to keep the premier skin shaders at around the same cost. That's just a slight personal gripe of mine that I wanted to mention. So, onwards to not quite number 2 yet, but a couple of bonus things that I thought about would be a pretty cool idea, but aren't very high on my priority list. Like, these would be cool to have, but don't necessarily count them as something that I would mind, not showing up. So, if they were in the game, cool. If not, whatever. Specifically, I'm going to bring up the idea of betting pieces of gear, or being able to transfer pieces of gear between guilds. So, suppose that you're in a rather large guild. It's got quite a few members, and you guys are earning gear on the reg. And there's a piece of gear for a set that you just can't seem to get no matter how much you try, and you just need that one more piece, and then you're in. You could request, say, the Billionaire Buckle for the Batman Billionaire set, and somebody in the group will be like, I'll give you this if you give me a Vambrace of Perfect Order for Dr. Fate, which they might need that to complete a set. So you've got that, you happen to have that, cool. You need this, cool. Trade, boom, you got new gear. this would be an incentive for me to actually keep duplicate epics, because why would I not do that? Why wouldn't I keep the duplicate pieces of gear in case somebody's got something for me to trade afterwards? And also, you could bet pieces of gear. So, for instance, suppose that you're in a match online, and you go against a guy, and he's got a fucking killer piece of Batman headgear, or just to mix up, Supergirl headgear and cape and stuff. And you're like, I really like that cape. I'll bet you that if I beat you in this match, I get that cape. And if I lose, you get this Swamp Thing club. How freaking cool would that be? That would be like, I don't like a lot of risk like that. I personally like to keep things safe. But for those who like that kind of risk and like to gamble, no better kind of match exists out there. And with that said, and at number 2, we've got something that will be very controversial, I imagine, and that is new ability tiers. Because there are some abilities that I personally would not mind actually having playable in an actual match. And when you hear some of that, some of you competitive folks will want to do this. No! Why? No! Okay, concussions aside, but some of these abilities actually are not nearly as broken as others. For instance, Superman has a move called Ground Tremor, which is exclusively available in gear. It's down forward heavy, and it's actually relatively not bad. It's got 27 frames of startup, -3 on block, and recovers in 30 frames, and it's a mid. The meter burn version is +6, I believe, and it is, or no, it's +4 actually, and it's a double hit with slightly fast recovery, but it's nothing to write home about. Same with his air flying punch, which is called Krypton Charge. This can't be meter burned, and really, how is this much different from just meterless flying punch? I could see moves like that being just fine. Other abilities, however, can be a little more troublesome. And this is where I believe people are like, we should probably just ban these altogether, because it would take way too long to figure them all out. For instance, Poison Ivy's Thistle Coat, which replaces the bark armor that she gets, allows her to not increase the damage of her attacks, but opponents that attack back will take a little bit of damage from any moves that make contact. For those Pokemon folks, it's like her activating Iron Barbs in all essence. And she also has a high projectile called Deadly Thorns, which can be kind of seen as broken because it ups her zoning capabilities even more so. So she can have up to 5 projectiles at any one time, which could make things a little rough, as you're gonna see here. But that's why you have to have a look and see what is going on. And, of course, some abilities will definitely be busted no matter what. For instance, Batman has an alternate version of his upward batarang called the Boomerang Bat. And I'm going to show you just how ridiculous this gear ability actually is. I have not gotten all of the details of the Boomerang Bat, but as you can see, as soon as it is active, Batman can just move forward, allowing him to combo off of nearly anything almost immediately afterwards as long as it's on the ground. The same, by the way, goes for the dual Batarangs, which is his old school Batarang toss. He doesn't move back, and it doesn't meter burn, but it's literally a free armor break, as Harley Quinn, unfortunately, is going to demonstrate right about now. See? That was a free armor break. And that is a little bit obscene. On the other end of the viability scale of banned ability, or abilities that should be banned, which means that this ability is not, Mollywop, which is Harley Quinn's Batter Up attack. It has 68 frames of startup, and while it can be unblockable on meter burn, and has a low variant, it is not very good. Like I said, it's 68 frames of startup. 68! That is ridiculous. If anybody thinks that Mollywop is busted, then I got news for you, pal. It sure as hell is not. Just like how Superman probably has the worst 2-slot ability in the game in his alternate super move where he drops a rock on your head. It's 50 frames, and you can dodge it relatively easily as long as you either do a meter burn roll or are insanely good with dodging. See, it's kind of bad, but at least it's not as bad as Green Lantern Super, so I guess there's that? Now that's not to say all abilities should be kept. Joker's Infection, for instance, does not poison the opponent, but instead scrambles their controls. That's a very strong thing for Harley Quinn to have, and I'm not totally sold on the idea of it, being allowed. However, some characters I feel kind of need gear in order to, do really well. Swamp Thing is probably the best example of this, and the worst example of this, and probably the better advocate for gear should be banned, is, of course, Black Adam. And I'm going to show you why. The following demonstrations are going to be brief since I am running out of the ability to record audio. But Swamp Thing's Trunk Punch Meter Burn would be a really good thing to have because it basically turns a normal into a meter burn version of the command grab, giving him time to use whatever option he wants, except he can only use one. A meter burn trait like what you just saw would be really good too in order to help with Swamp Thing's most common complaint, which is trait. He also has an alternate 2-slot trait, but because I personally think that all 2 slots should be barred, good luck trying to convince me that teleport should be used. And he also has, worth noting, that he has a projectile in Spine Blast, which is only available as gear. Now, they're high and they're not necessarily the best projectiles in the game, but any projectile would be a huge help for Swamp Thing against zoners. Whereas Black Adam, all of Black Adam's gear abilities are kind of ridiculous, from floating lightning bombs, yes, floating lightning bombs, to even one of the few acceptable abilities he has in Deity's Bolt, which is a very fast lightning bolt from above that does quite a bit of damage. Even extending to Seth Strike, which basically turns his trait from unblockable combo assisters for damage to magic versions of Batman's bats. Like, this guy needs to be more broken. You're going to be seeing my face a lot more often because for some reason Share Factory has a separate, smaller clip limit to voice clips, so you're not going to be hearing me more often than seeing me. But anyway, the idea that I personally had for these abilities is that they would have new tiers. You would have, starting from the bottom, abilities that are usable when gear mode is off. So, for example, Superman's Ground Tremor, Mollywop, and maybe some of Sub-Zero's clones. So, like the Clone Charge and the Clone Dive Kick thing. Maybe some of that stuff is... that stuff will be allowed even with gear abilities off. But they would be marked in the gear, when the match loads, you will see that those abilities will be active, and they'll be marked with a gold star or something. Next up are abilities that will not be viable in with gear mode off. And that's all of the more broken stuff and all 2-slot traits. That And that is mainly because most of the 2-slot traits, Seth Strike, Wonder Woman's ability to choose trait, and that kind of thing, that I personally think that's just a blanket ban on those, because most of those can get ridiculous, like Seth Strike, and as I saw a Wonder Woman with the bracer augments almost kill somebody in one combo. So we should probably just generally ban the 2 slots, because most of them are that good. I mean, there are exceptions like Superman's Meteor Drop, and Swamp Thing's Teleport is debatable, but overall 2 slots banned. And basically any of Black Adam's abilities except for Deity's Lightning and maybe Air Lightning Cage, but again, I wouldn't wager on those being a thing. That's just a personal opinion of mine. That as well as having 1 slot and 2 slots, you would also have viable in competitive and unviable in competitive. And some of you will probably be looking at me like, dude, that would take forever to balance. Would it though? Would it really take longer? Look at Mortal Kombat X. In Mortal Kombat X, you had 3 variations per character, okay? Now, I'm going to count variation lists here, so there's technically 4, but actually, no, let's not count those. We'll just stick with the 3 main variations between 33 characters, and we'll count Triborg's variation list as a 4th variation. That's 100 variations in total. And I'm going to spare the math, but suffice it to say that technically in Mortal Kombat X, there are not 30 matchups. There are hundreds, if not thousands of matchups. So if you guys were able to figure that out in a couple of months, a lot of the competitive folks should be able to dictate which competitive abilities, or which abilities should be competitively viable for use outside or inside of tournaments. And if I might make a suggestion, the 3 abilities that I say, for instance, will start this should be Superman's Ground Tremor, Poison Ivy's Thistlecoat, and Sub-Zero's Clone Kick. And those are in no real particular order. The only real order was that Superman's Ground Tremor had to be a thing, because come on. What is so special about Ground Tremor? It literally looks like a move that he should be able to use from the get-go, because he's like, punch the ground and hurt you! But anyways, on to the number 1 thing that I would like to be from the gear system is the ability to buy your own gear. And I have a fairly detailed plan on how that should work out. So, let me explain. So, let's suppose that there is a new option inside of the Brother Eye Vault called the Gear Marketplace or something. And what you can do is you can go into that marketplace and see gear on a timer. So, let's say you go in there and there are 20 pieces of common gear available, 1 for each character. So, you've got Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and all of them have 1 piece of common gear available that gets cycled through every 2 to 3 hours. And then, daily, you would have 10 rare pieces of gear that you could buy. Now, rare pieces of gear are actually pretty good, because, for instance, with my Sub-Zero, I have 2 chest pieces that are better than both of my epic pieces of gear. Like, 200 strength, 150 ability, 150 defense, and about 100 health. Side note, why is health so... health is weird because the more health you have, the less you'll have in other stats, usually. So health is weird, but those kinds of rares are valuable. So those are worth looking for. And that's why you could have a look there, and they last 24 hours. And then weekly, you have 5 epic non-gear set pieces. So you'd have epic pieces of gear that are not part of a gear set. You'd have 5 of them, 1 for each different character. So you have Batman, Superman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, and Harley Quinn. You'd have 5 pieces of gear from them, and they would last for about a week. Or 3 days. They'll last 3 days. And then when 3 days is done, whoop, then you'd have, whoop, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Swamp Thing, Deadshot, and Sub-Zero. So characters can be repeated, but never will you have Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman gear. You would just have like one Wonder Woman gear piece and then the rest. And then weekly you have 3 gear set piece gears. So you'd have the Billionaire Buckle, the Cloak of House L, and the Blockbuster Falchion, the movie Wonder Woman set, sword piece. So as an example, you'd have those pieces, and they're guaranteed to be gear pieces connected to a set of gear sets. So you'll have something from a set that could be two pieces of gear, or it could be 4 pieces or 5 pieces or whatever. And each of these gear, of course, would have values that are... The basic formula would be double and a little bit of their sell value. So a common piece of gear that you'd sell for 220 credits would be worth 440 credits or 450 credits in the marketplace. And take note, you're using credits here, not source crystals, in order to buy these pieces of gear. It's kind of like... It would be kind of like skipping the mother box bit. You're skipping the mother box and just going straight for buying those pieces of gear. Now, it's still valuable to buy those mother boxes because once you buy a piece of gear from the gear shop, that slot is gone and will not be filled again until it clocks over. So if you buy all 3 Epic Gear slots, which are like the 3 like top tier ones that cycle through weekly, and you buy them day of, you have to wait another week until the next pieces of gear set up. It doesn't just cycle through this for you. This is, by the way, quick reminder, this is all hypothetical, but this would be super cool. And they would all basically have their own value. So you'd have like 450 to like 1,000 credits for commons. You could have up to 6,000 credits for rares. The priceless augment will affect price too. So you could have pieces of gear that cost as much as a silver mother box, no problem. That'd be kind of funny, but still. But I think, and this is just a big thing, just because this would be a great way to complete sets. Like, I've got some sets that are just like one piece away, and that would be like superb. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have, like, you're like, fuck, I need one more Deadshot piece, and then I have the entire set, or Dr. Fate, or whatever. And that would make that perfect. Now, I am thinking about there being a monthly ability thing where you buy an ability once a month, and then the shop will close once you have them all. But I don't know if that should be the case. I'm not 100% sure if that should be the case, or make it every 2 weeks or something, so that you can buy gear abilities with credits, and they'd cost like 500,000 credits or 1,000,000 credits or whatever. They'd be super expensive if they were a thing. So that does it for my top in quotations, 5 recommendations to improve the gear system. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me? Do you guys disagree? Do you think I'm a crazy person? Do you want me to smash my head into the desk again for suggesting that gear abilities are a thing? Or as like an actual competitive thing to work around in competitive mode? Let me know what you think. Comment. Speak. Make sure that you voice your opinion, because it's super important to voice your opinion in even some of the stupider things, and even more so with some of the more important stuff in the world. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed this little video, and as always, a DFTBA.